Hello there and welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, we are going to be going over a 2021 NFL mock draft. And we're really close to the actual NFL draft, which is taking place on Thursday. So this is going to be probably the last run that we have of this NFL mock draft. We've been doing this consistently throughout the entire season for the most part. I think we began all the way in week 6. So it's really exciting to see that all this hard work that we've been going through is about to pay off as we watch the NFL draft. So here's our final rendition of the said mock. So number one, it's been pretty clear and obvious who was going to be the pick this entire season. Trevor Lawrence. I don't think much changes here with Jacksonville ultimately opting for him. Really like that pick for Jacksonville. I think he's the perfect fit to ultimately revitalize the franchise down there in Jacksonville. Pair him with Urban Meyer, who that was the main reason he had went to Jacksonville, was that he could have Trevor Lawrence. So he is the pick at 1. Number 2, another clear pick to me. Zach Wilson out of BYU shows some really interesting athletic traits. He has a good arm and he has pretty good pocket awareness as well. Really fun and flashy player for the New York Jets. Obviously, they have a desperate need at quarterback. They are going to be going with him at number 2. Now, number 3 is where the pivot point is, right? So the San Francisco 49ers have Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones all on the board to them. Obviously, they traded up for a quarterback. I think it's pretty clear and obvious that they are going to select one. I think there's a very outside chance that they don't take one, but that is highly unlikely. They will be looking for a quarterback. Now, it all comes down to preference. Mac Jones, Trey Lance, sounds like that's who they have it narrowed down to. So either one of them makes sense for San Francisco. They definitely need a quarterback. From what I've been hearing, scouting department likes Lance and Shanahan likes Mac Jones. So that's kind of where the difference lies. I'm not sure who's going to get the upper hand on the decision of what quarterback. Trey Lance, you're baking out, quite a bit of upside for him. Big time arm, very good athlete. Mac Jones, a consistent, accurate thrower of the football. Not a phenomenal athlete, but he was extremely accurate at the University of Alabama. I think that they will opt to go with Mac Jones with said selection. I think that's kind of where they're leaning right now. I could be wrong on that. Maybe they've been kind of having a smoke screen for that. But for me personally, I do see Mac Jones being the pick at number 3, which brings us to Atlanta at number 4. And now to keep in mind, we are not doing trades in this mock draft. Number 4 is really interesting. You have the Atlanta Falcons, who have 2 years left of Matt Ryan's contract. They have to make a decision. Are they going to ride that contract out? Are they going to draft one right now and go ahead and develop the backup quarterback, whoever it may be? So that's kind of the challenges we're facing with their pick. Obviously, they haven't traded out yet, but Justin Fields seems like the perfect fit there if they do opt to stay and take a quarterback. I think there's a chance that they even look at Kyle Pitts potentially. So very interesting. I think that they will be looking for their next franchise quarterback. Justin Fields will be the selection here. Obviously, he's a Georgia kid himself. That'd be kind of a really cool storyline for him going back to his home state. Justin Fields, big time arm, really good on deep balls for sure. Has some inconsistencies in his game, stares down his targets. He's not a great progression guy, but I mean, his athletic traits are outstanding. He has a big time arm. I'm really kind of wondering why people are so low on him at this point. There was a point in time where he was the number 2 quarterback for sure, and now there's a lot of question marks surrounding him, generated mainly by the media. So Justin Fields is the pick at number 4. At number 5, we have Cincinnati. Cincinnati is between, to me, 2 players, Ja'Marr Chase and Penei Sewell. Do you want to go ahead and get Joe Burrow his weapon from college in Ja'Marr Chase, who was phenomenal route runner, really good hands. And he even tested better than a lot of us had anticipated athletically. And Penei Sewell, really great upside for an offensive tackle. He's going to play that left tackle spot. And just great potential with him. Obviously, very strong dude, very athletic. There's so much to like about him. Good arm, good length of his arms. So I think it's really close. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, I think that they are actually leaning towards Ja'Marr Chase. I think they maybe feel like the depth of this tackle class allows them to go ahead and sit it out. I think that Jamar Chase is the pick. It's a very tough decision, but Jamar Chase will be the selection, pairing Burrow and Chase together. Really, really dynamic duo. And number 6 is kind of another pivot point. I think Penei Sewell is definitely in play. I think Jalen Waddle's definitely in play. Those two guys are on the radar of the Miami Dolphins. We've seen some reports even tonight about the Miami Dolphins potentially looking at taking a guy like Jalen Waddle with that 6th overall pick. I think both offer fantastic upside. Jalen Waddle is super explosive. Penei Sewell could be that cornerstone on that offensive line. It's really tough with them because you want to see Tua get a guy he can throw underneath with, a guy he has a little bit of rapport with, but also, I mean, Penei Sewell is a phenomenal talent. It's hard to see Penei Sewell slide past Miami here. I'm gonna opt to go ahead and go Penei Sewell with that selection. It's really tough to see Miami pass on a guy like him, especially him just falling into your lap at 6 after Cincinnati passed on him. Love the upside with Penei Sewell. At number 7, we have the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions desperately need a wide receiver if they stick here. I don't know the likelihood that they do. I think New England and Detroit might make a trade either before the draft or during the draft. But if they do opt to stay here, I think Jalen Waddle's a phenomenal fit. He's an absolute burner, super explosive with the ball in his hands. And ultimately, I think he could be a true deep threat for them. Obviously, Jared Goff is going to need some weapons to work with there in Detroit. The defense definitely needs some work there. The roster as a whole is turning over, but Jalen Waddle, fantastic playmaker for the Lions. At number 8, we have the Carolina Panthers, and they feel pretty happy with what they have falling into their lap. Kyle Pitts from Florida is the clear selection to me. They have a glaring need at tight end. Kyle Pitts to me is the 3rd best player in the entire class. All world catch radius. I mean, he's got one of the best that I've ever seen from a college prospect, if not the best. Phenomenal hands guy. The guy's an athletic freak as well. Tested super well, ran well. There's so much to like about Kyle Pitts as a prospect, and him going to number 8 is the absolute steal of the draft thus far. At number 9, we have the Denver Broncos. This is under the assumption that they didn't have to trade up. And here you go. You have Trey Lance that have now, fallen right in the lap of Denver. Once again, I think when the actual draft comes, I think there's going to be a team like New England that is trying to move up and go ahead and get Trey Lance, whether that be at 7, whether that be at 6. It really depends. I don't think that it makes sense for Miami to trade back, though, because there's a reason they moved from 12 back to 6. They want someone, so that's not happening. I think 7 is the more likely candidate. Or if they feel like they got to move all the way to 4 for New England, that's a possibility as well. But let's talk about Trey Lance a little bit. Tremendous upside, really good athlete, big arm. Denver definitely is looking potentially at taking a quarterback. Otherwise, they might let Drew Lock play another year. And then Trey Lance, if they feel like he's not ready, Drew Lock can be that starter for them, and he can sit a year behind him. So a lot to like about this selection for the Denver Broncos. At number 10, we have the Dallas Cowboys. To me, there's a glaring need at that corner spot. Patrick Surtain's been the pick for quite some time. I mean, even through the middle of the season, we had been mocking Surtain. I do think that makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Obviously, they could look elsewhere, but I think it's pretty clear that they need to go with the guy that was phenomenal, impressed this year. Really, really good corner. Caleb Farley, unfortunately, has his back concern. So Patrick Surtain is now cornerback 1 on a lot of people's boards. There he is at 10. At pick 11, the New York Giants are sitting here, and they have the former Heisman winner kind of glaring them in the face. Devontae Smith, I think this is a great landing spot for him. Devontae Smith gets to be that number 1 receiver in New York. Obviously, they added Kenny Golladay this offseason. So, I mean, overall, you're getting a really, really good collection of playmakers for Daniel Jones. They'll have Saquon Barkley back. I love the selection of Devontae Smith at here. At number 12, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, they need a wide receiver too. But I also think it's kind of clear that they need a corner. They could look at the linebacker spot as well. I think linebacker makes a lot of sense. I think Micah Parsons is a phenomenal fit potentially here with that pick. Let's kind of look around and see who are some of the other top guys that they could take. To me, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go corner. Now, are they willing to go ahead and take J.C. Horn? I don't know. Also, Rashad Bateman's another player that is here. I think Rashad Bateman in these rankings are a little lower than what he actually is. I think he is very close to those top three receivers, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if Philly reached a little bit on him. Maybe they trade back, but I mean, they definitely could go wide receiver. It's very tough. This is probably the hardest pick I've had to make ultimately thus far. I think corner is going to be the route that they go, though. It's hard not to have them take a linebacker. I think they need to take linebacker. Micah Parsons is an absolute stud. One of the most versatile linebackers in the entire class. Philly would be getting a really, really good prospect here. At one time, it was thought to be, he was going to be a lock to be a top 10. Now he's sliding a little bit on people's boards. I think we must not forget how good of a prospect he actually is. Micah Parsons here at 12. Now we're sitting at 13. The Chargers got really lucky with how this all played out. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, them getting Rashawn Slater is just insane. Great value here if this is how it plays out for the Chargers. Phenomenal pass blocker. The Chargers need to take care of Justin Herbert. Drafting Rashawn Slater is a really good way of doing that. Phenomenal fit in LA for Rashawn Slater. He's entering a team that could be a playoff team potentially this year. Love the fit for the LA Chargers. Brandon Staley gets a really, really quality prospect in his first pick. At number 14, we had the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, interior offensive line is a need. They could be looking edge. They could be looking corner. Reason I say corner, Jeff Gladney's got a lot of legal issues kind of at his plate right now. I don't know long term if he's going to be around. I mean, he might be going to jail. So that's kind of some serious stuff. But I ultimately do think that they will go tackle. Now, his preference on Darrisaw or Jenkins. Jenkins, to me, better run blocker than Darrisaw, but I think Darrisaw does offer more upside in the pass blocking. So I think they will ultimately go with Christian Darrisaw. Reason being, better pass blocker. You can also keep Ezra Cleveland at that right guard spot. That's why I opted not to go with Elijah Vera Tucker in this situation. Ezra Cleveland played really, really well at guard this season, so I think that makes sense. Number 15, we have the New England Patriots. New England now is sitting with no quarterbacks left on their plate. They're not going to reach for one. I know that for sure. I think let's take a look at what they have. Rashad Bateman's on the board for them potentially. I'm going to peek at the linebacker spot. Obviously, I like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I think he could be a nice playmaker for them on that defense, but they need to get an absolute stud here in Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota. Definitely a guy that could take the top off the defense. Really, really impressive tape, especially in 2019. He was phenomenal. I think Rashad Bateman's very worthy of being that 15th overall pick. Good consistent hands, not a super dynamic athlete with the ball in his hands, but really good route runner. Rashad Bateman at 15. At 16 now, you have the Arizona Cardinals. I think it's pretty clear and obvious that they have to look at the corner spot. J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley. I have a preference on Farley, but I'm going to have him slide a little bit. I'm not sure if these medicals are going to check up and if teams are going to be prepared to spend a top 16 pick on him. I don't know. If it were me personally, I would be taking Caleb Farley, but I'm trying to go based off of what I think will happen. J.C. Horn would be the selection. Really good dynamic athlete. He's physical. He's grabby, but he had some really, really impressive games this season on tape. I love J.C. Horn, for this team. I do have a preference, however, on Caleb Farley, but J.C. Horn's a really good prospect at 16 for Arizona, a team that desperately needs a corner. At 17 now, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They could be looking tackle, which I think is a desperate need. They could also be looking linebacker, and I've been pretty consistent on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah being a really good fit for them as a whole. I have a hard time not mocking him again here. I do understand the pressing need at tackle. I mean, they could look to Tevin Jenkins' way. Tevin Jenkins is an absolute stud at the tackle spot, elite run blocker, but maybe Vegas was really impressed with Tevin Jenkins' tape. I could see them going in that direction. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as well. could be the selection. I think Tevin Jenkins, I mean, they need a tackle so bad. I mean, they must have had a clear and obvious plan to go offensive line in this class. Tevin Jenkins is the selection. Now we're sitting here at 18 with the Miami Dolphins. Miami obviously took Penei Sewell. Now they could be looking at that wide receiver spot. I think potentially a great fit here would be Kadarius Toney. Don't really read too much into these rankings. I think Kadarius Toney is a first-round prospect for sure. Really dynamic with the ball in his hands. He could really help Tua out in the middle of the field and do a lot of drag and mesh concepts. I think that Kadarius Toney will be the selection for Miami. Now here at 19, we have the Washington football team. They desperately need a tackle, and this is very possibly where we could see the run on tackles. So at this point, let's see what we do have available on the board. Alex Leatherwood, Samuel Cosmi. I mean, Samuel Cosmi has been dipping a little bit on these rankings. Still a quality tackle, though. It's tough not having him go at this spot. Let's see what else is available. I mean, when you get to this point with Washington's pick, it would be kind of interesting to actually see them go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, looking for more value. I think some of those guys that you've seen on the board, you could get in the second round. So if you're going to kind of play that game, I feel very comfortable having Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah go. Very versatile linebacker, elite coverage skills. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is the selection. Now with the Bears here at 20, I don't see it's entirely likely that they take a quarterback. However, they could be looking along that offensive line as well. Let's see what we do have available once again. I think Samuel Cosmi would be the selection here. The Bears desperately need to kind of reconfigure that offensive line. Samuel Cosmi would go a long ways in doing so. Love that pick at 20. At 21, the Colts, once again, we're going to see a little bit of a run on tackle. I think Dylan Radins would be a good selection from North Dakota State. Very, very solid in pass blocking situations. I don't love Alex Leatherwood in terms of the pass blocking. I think Dylan Radins would be the good pick here at 21. At 22, we have the Tennessee Titans, who definitely need a corner. I think that's pretty clear. This is going to be the team that ultimately takes a chance on Caleb Farley. I think this is where teams will start to feel comfortable taking a corner. To me, Tennessee desperately needs one. Obviously, they've completely reconstructed that corner room. It's going to start with Caleb Farley. You're taking a little risk on the medicals, but I mean, he's a top 10 player to me, or a near top 10 player. Love that at 22. At number 23, we have the New York Jets selecting, and obviously they go ahead and get Zach Wilson in the first. I think they come back, and I think they definitely are looking edge. Jalen Phillips from Miami, really productive in terms of rushing the quarterback. I also think he was very good against the run. Really impressed with his ability to stay home. Also just wreak havoc along that offensive line. He was a really fun player to watch, probably the most complete in terms of holistic edge rushing play, probably the most ready right now. Jalen Phillips from Miami. He was a transfer from UCLA, highly coveted initial recruit out of high school. At number 24, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are in an interesting spot. I've heard a lot about running back. I've heard a little bit about the tackle spot, maybe even corner, but I've heard primarily about Najee Harris going here. And I do think that is very possible. And Pittsburgh has been looking for that key running game. Obviously, since Le'Veon has left, it hasn't been the same. Maybe they're hoping that Najee Harris could be that same guy for them. Obviously, Najee Harris was one of the best pass-catching backs in the nation. Love that pick for Pittsburgh. Obviously, trying to get back to when they were at their best, when they could run the ball and throw it. Obviously, they've had some issues running it as of late. Number 25, we have Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville, after grabbing Trevor Lawrence, they will be looking in that secondary. They signed Rayshawn Jenkins in the offseason. They're looking for that second safety. Trayvon Merrick is going to be the pick. To me, the best all-around safety in the entire class. Not a particularly strong safety class, but Trayvon Merrick is the very top, very worthy of a late first-round pick. They have to improve that secondary. Last year it was absolutely atrocious, but getting Rayshawn Jenkins and now bringing on Trayvon Merrick into the fold is a really good idea for Jacksonville. At 26, we have the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns could be looking to potentially address that edge spot. I don't see how it's entirely likely, but something that's kind of interesting we haven't mocked yet is Christian Barmore. I think Christian Barmore on the interior of that defensive line, I mean, they're kind of getting a little bit of a facelift in Cleveland. I think this could be scary with obviously having Myles Garrett and Jadeveon, and then you go ahead and add Christian Barmore into this. Love that for the Cleveland Browns. Christian Barmore is the pick at 26. 27, you have Baltimore Ravens. They are definitely looking at a wideout in this kind of realm. Let me kind of see what we do have available at the linebacker spot. Nobody scheme-wise that makes a ton of sense there. I think Azeez Ojulari could make a ton of sense. He is actually going to be the pick. Azeez Ojulari, he's best fit in a 3-4. Obviously, I think that works perfectly in Baltimore. Obviously, that's what they run. You got to replace Matthew Judon. Azeez Ojulari, a really, really fun pass rusher. Can really get after the quarterback. Super athletic, and he really splashes on tape. At pick 28, we have the New Orleans Saints, and New Orleans could be looking at that corner spot. And a guy I really like that doesn't have a ton of experience and a ton of coverage snaps is Greg Newsome. Has some really good length and physical traits. I like him going to the New Orleans Saints. Got those really nice long arms. He was pretty impressive in the games that he did play. At 29, we have the Green Bay Packers. They have to be prepared along that offensive line, obviously with Bakhtiari being out. But I think that they will look at that wide receiver spot. I mean, I could see Elijah Moore making some sense. They also need to look at that in that corner area as well. It's tough because a little bit of projection with Eric Stokes. He's got some work to do, but the physical traits are all there in terms of speed. I mean, that would be potentially interesting to see Green Bay go with the corner and then maybe take a tackle in that second round. I think Eric Stokes actually makes a ton of sense here. Let's see. I got to go back to running back or wide out. Excuse me once again. I think Terrace Marshall could be a potentially interesting red zone threat, but I mean, you already have that in Devontae Adams. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But Elijah Moore, big time playmaker over the middle, really, really elusive. He can do a lot with the ball in his hands. I think that actually makes a lot of sense for Green Bay. I know a lot of Green Bay fans don't want a wide receiver, or there's some that don't. I shouldn't say all. But I think Elijah Moore is definitely worthy of a first-round pick. I love what he can do with the ball in his hands, brings a lot of juice to that offense. Obviously, they were a very productive offense last year, but just bringing in a guy like Elijah Moore is going to make him that much more dangerous. He will be going to Green Bay. At pick 30, we have the Buffalo Bills. I think corner is a definite need. I think Eric Stokes could be a great fit. Let's look along the edges. Kwity Paye still remains. Guys like Carlos Basham. Gregory Rousseau is all the way down at 53. I don't agree with those rankings. In my opinion, I don't think he should be that low. Let's go ahead and take the corner, Eric Stokes from Georgia. Once again, I talked about some of his elite speed and quickness. I think that bodes well for that Buffalo defense. Once again, at 31, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and I think this is pretty clear and obvious. Terrace Marshall Jr. is a great fit for them. Terrace Marshall could be that true red zone threat, really big body, 6'4" to throw to, and he also tested very well at the pro day. So I love that for Terrace Marshall Jr. He's a lot faster than people were expecting him to run. Pretty good catch radius on top of it. 31 is the pick, Terrace Marshall Jr. And then finally, to conclude, we have the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are in a weird spot because they need to definitely consider the interior of that offensive line. I think you could replace a guy like Alex Kappa. Elijah Vera-Tucker is all the way down here at 32. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen for sure, but I could see a pathway where I think there's a pathway where he does slide a little bit. Elijah Vera-Tucker going at 32 provides some versatility along that offensive line. He played guard and tackle. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, please hit that subscribe button. Also leave a like to show your support for our channel. We've been, having a lot of fun doing these mock drafts, and thank you so much for all of the support throughout the entire year. And we can't wait to see you guys in the next video.